The last 600 years of Indian history witnessed the arrival and influence of several European powers, each leaving a lasting impact on the subcontinent. These colonial powers sought economic opportunities, trade routes, and geopolitical advantages in the vast and diverse landscape of India. Here is an overview of the major European powers that invaded India, the duration of their reigns, and the territories they controlled. Before proceeding further, please note that the depicted time periods of the European colonizers in this video are reasonably precise. Timelines of historical events can differ across various sources. The Portuguese rule in India lasted from 1498 to 1961. They were the first Europeans to arrive in India, led by Vasco da Gama in 1498. Initially focused on establishing trade, the Portuguese gradually expanded their control along the western coast. They gained dominance over key port cities such as Goa, Daman, Diu, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Mangalore, Kollam, Kannur, Nagapattinam and more. The Portuguese ruled over Mumbai for some time. Mumbai was a harbour of Portuguese India from 1535 until it was handed over to Charles II of England in 1661 as part of the dowry of Catherine de Braganza. The Portuguese influence in India endured for over 4 centuries, until Indian forces annexed Goa in 1961, marking the end of Portuguese colonial rule. Though they were the first Europeans to arrive in India, they were the last to leave. The presence of the Dutch in India lasted from 1605 to 1825. The Dutch East India Company set its sights on India, establishing trading posts along the Coromandel coast and in the Malabar region. The Dutch traded in cotton, opium, silk, indigo, rice and black pepper. Their influence was particularly concentrated in regions like Pulicat, Nagapattinam, and Kochi. They also established presence in Surat and Bengal. However, their presence in India declined over time, and by the early 19th century, the British East India Company had largely supplanted Dutch influence. Of all the European colonial powers that came to India, the Dutch had the shortest presence. The British presence in India lasted from 1608 to 1947. The British East India Company entered India in 1608 to engage in trade. Over time, the company became increasingly involved in Indian politics and governance. The Battle of Plassey in 1757 marked a significant turning point, leading to British dominance in Bengal. The company gradually expanded its control, ruling over territories such as Madras, Bombay, Punjab and Nagpur. After the Indian Rebellion of 1857, the British Crown formally established its rule over India in 1858. This was the British Raj, which lasted until 1947. It is estimated that Britain drained India of almost $45 trillion. The British left India in grinding poverty and a life expectancy of only 32 to 37 years. The French presence in India lasted from 1668 to 1954. The French East India Company established its presence in India in the late 17th century, primarily for trade purposes. The French and British engaged in several conflicts for supremacy over Indian trade and territories. Soon after his arrival in 1741, the most famous governor of French India, Joseph-François Dupleix, began to cherish the ambition of a French territorial empire in India. However, Robert Clive, a British officer, dashed the hopes of Dupleix. Britain ultimately succeeded in overtaking France as the dominant European power in India. In 1954, the French occupied territories like Chandarnagore, Pondicherry, Mahé, Yanam and Karaikal were handed over to the Indian government. The Danish presence in India was from 1618 to 1869. The Danish East India Company sought to establish a presence in India, focusing on trade and commerce. They had colonial possessions in Tarangambadi, also known as Tranquebar, in the present-day Tamil Nadu, Serampore in the present-day West Bengal, and the Nicobar Islands, currently part of India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The Danish never posed a military or mercantile threat, and despite being present in India for over 200 years, their influence was limited. By the mid-19th century, they sold their Indian possessions to the British. marking the end of Danish colonial aspirations in the region. It is crucial to note that while these European powers had a significant impact on specific regions, their control over India was often fragmented, with different European nations holding sway over different parts of the subcontinent. Moreover, local rulers and regional powers retained varying degrees of autonomy despite European interventions. During the colonial period, the British East India Company and later the British Crown exerted the most extensive control, ruling over large territories in India. The French and Portuguese controlled smaller regions, primarily along the coasts. The Dutch influence, once significant, waned over time, and the Danish presence in India was relatively limited. In summary, the European powers that invaded India in the last 600 years played a pivotal role in shaping the course of Indian history. Their impact is visible in India's cultural, economic, and political landscape. The struggles for supremacy among these European nations, coupled with the resistance and resilience of the Indian people, created a complex tapestry that continues to define India's historical narrative. I hope you liked this video. Thanks for your time and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.